Everybody thinks leadership looks easy until the pressure becomes theirs. It's easy to criticize communication when you're not the only one leading the meeting. Easy to question decisions when you're not carrying the accountability. Easy to say what should have happened when the outcome isn't attached to your name. And I learned something the hard way. A lot of people question leadership until they have to carry the pressure themselves because pressure changes perspective. And today we're going to talk about what happens when people finally realize leadership is heavier than it looks. I'm ED. And for all you smart and intelligent folks out there, that just simply means that this is the leadership storytelling. And this is where pressure, leadership, growth, and real world experience becomes lessons you can actually, and I do mean actually, use in real life. I remember sitting there being criticized one time because someone felt it was completely my responsibility as the project manager to always have a fully prepared agenda for every meeting. Now, let me be clear. I always had an agenda. Not only that, I would ask for agenda topics days in advance, and then I would follow up again 1 or 2 hours before the meeting actually started. Hey, does anybody have any additional topics they want to add? Silence, crickets. I mean, nothing. But here is what happens when the pressure of leadership becomes real. If I would have walked into the meeting without enough discussion points, some people staying silent would have probably looked at me and said, well, you're the project manager. You should have already known what we needed to discuss. And that's the pressure most people never see, because as a project manager, if people don't contribute to the agenda, the responsibility still falls on you. Therefore, now you're searching through emails, project schedules, team chat, action items, previous meeting notes, and stakeholder concerns, trying to build some structure out of a fragmented conversation or communication. And honestly, that pressure becomes emotionally exhausting after a while, because leadership often means carrying responsibility for things other people had the opportunity to contribute but chose not to. But life has a funny way of teaching perspective. One day, that same manager scheduled a meeting themselves. And about an hour before the meeting, they sent out a request asking everybody for agenda topics. Crickets. Nobody responded. Okay, if I'm going to be honest with you, I don't want to sound petty, but I was smiling. I was smiling because I remember just sitting there thinking to myself of experiencing that same exact pressure, and they criticized me for that. Now, suddenly, getting alignment wasn't easy. Preparing structure wasn't automatic. People weren't contributing. Silence created pressure. And as badly as I wanted to laugh, I didn't, because leadership taught me something important. Before you carefully judge responsibilities you never personally carry, that experience humbled me deeply, because I realized something about leadership and even life in general. A lot of things look simple from the outside until the responsibility becomes yours. It's kind of like organizing a potluck. If nobody coordinates who brings what, people either bring nothing, they duplicate the same items, or show up confused, wondering, why does the table makes no sense? Therefore, structure matters. Leadership structure matters. Communication matters. Preparation matters. And now, when I look back at that leadership difference, I try not to casually criticize what another leader is carrying, because I know firsthand that responsibility always feels heavier when it's attached to your name. That's why I love that quote by Frank Sinatra, and it hits differently for me now. Frank said, best revenge is massive success, not bitterness, not emotional retaliation, perspective, growth, results, because eventually pressure teaches people what criticism never could. Principle number 1, leadership pressure is invincible to observers. Oh, this is heavy. One of the hardest parts about leadership is that people often judge responsibilities they never personally carry. People see the meetings, but they don't see the preparation behind it. People see the agenda, but they don't see the pressure of trying to organize this fragmented communication when nobody wants to contribute. And that's the difficult part about leadership. Even when other people stay silent, the responsibility will still always fall on you, the project manager, because if the meeting lacks direction, nobody said, hey, we should have contributed more. they usually look at the leader. And over time, that pressure becomes emotionally heavy because leadership often means creating structure and environments where everybody wants clarity, but not everybody contributes to building it. And that's why leadership looks easier from the outside when it feels from the inside. Experiment with these actual tips. Before criticizing leadership decisions, ask yourself what invisible responsibilities may exist behind the scenes. Next one. If you are leading, document expectations early so responsibility does not become emotionally one-sided. Why is this important? When people do not understand invisible leadership pressures, they often underestimate the emotional discipline required to lead effectively. See, they misunderstand, which creates unfair criticism, unrealistic expectation, emotional exhaustion, and leadership burnout. Over time, many strong professionals began questioning themselves simply because nobody is recognizing the weight they are carrying behind the scene. Here's my professional advice, family. The calmer a leader appears externally, the more invisible pressure they are often managing internally. Never mistake composure for ease. And I get it. Eventually, criticism changes once people personally experience that responsibility themselves. Principle number 2, accountability changes perspective. See, it's easy to have opinions when outcomes are not attached to somebody's name. But the moment responsibility becomes personal, perspective, it takes a slight twist. It kind of even just pivot. Now suddenly, silence creates pressure. Lack of communication creates stress. Poor preparation creates confusion. Alignment becomes difficult. And that's exactly what happened when the same person criticizing my process had to lead the process themselves. That same silence I experienced, well, they experienced. That same pressure I carried, well, welcome to the team. You got a chance to carry it. And honestly, family, the moment, that particular moment taught me more about the power of leadership and how is our accountability and our responsibility not to be so judgmental so quick until you have walked in those shoes, because accountability will humble you. Pressure exposes complexity, and leadership always feels different once your name again becomes attached to the outcome. Here's 2 actionable tips I'd love for you to experiment with. Spend more time understanding responsibility before criticizing execution. If you lead people, stay patient with individuals who have not yet experienced the pressure you are carrying. Why is this important? Perspective changes the moment accountability becomes personal. That's why emotional mature professionals learn to judge leadership less casually and communicate with more empathy. Because once people experience pressure firsthand, they begin to understand why preparation matters, why communication matters, why structure, it does matter, and why leadership becomes emotionally exhausting. And that's the understanding creates better collaboration instead of unnecessary criticism. Here's my professional advice. Some people, I said some people want authority until they experience accountability. Leadership becomes very real when the outcome can impact your credibility, reputation, or your future. And once I realized that, I stopped wasting energy trying to prove myself to people who have never carried the pressure I carry. Principle number 3, results silence what arguments cannot. Oh, that's good, family. So one of the biggest mistakes professionals make is spending too much emotional energy trying to defend themselves in real time. Okay, you want me to testify? I've been guilty about this more times than I can count. This is why I can speak to it intelligently, because I had to learn that eventually results, outcomes, they speak louder than frustration, not immediately, not emotionally, and definitely not overnight, but consistently producing outcomes eventually forces people to reevaluate what they once questioned. And honestly, that realization changed me. I stopped focusing on winning every conversation. You know what I focused on? Preparation, consistency, communication, execution, and emotional discipline. Because over time, pressure exposes who can consistently carry responsibility when things become difficult. And eventually, those same people who question your leadership begin respecting the consistency they once overlooked. That's why that Frank Sinatra quote for me hits different. Again, the best revenge is massive success, not bitterness, not ego, not emotional retaliation. Experiment with these actionable tips. Focus more energy on execution than emotional validation. Next one. Let consistency build credibility over time instead of forcing people to understand your value immediately. Why is this important? Professionals who consistently or constantly seek emotional validation often become distracted from execution, but leaders who stay focused and consistent eventually build credibility that speak louder than that temporary criticism that team or that individual provided. Because results create trust, because results create authority, because results create confidence, because results, as the late Aretha Franklin would say, creates RESPE, seeking respect. That's all I need right now. So, and over time, consistent execution exposes who can truly lead under pressure when accountability becomes real. Here's my professional advice. You don't need to win every opinion battle when your consistency and results continue to speak long after the conversation ends. And maybe that's the real lesson here, family. Leadership is not looking powerful. It's about carrying pressure consistently enough to produce results anyway. Here's the truth. Some of you listening to me right now knows exactly what I'm talking about. You've been questioned. You've been overlooked. You even have been underestimated, not because you lack ability, not because you lack skills, but because some people only understood leadership after pressure forces them to carry it themselves. And one of the biggest lessons leadership has taught me, a lot of responsibility looks simple from the outside until your name becomes attached to the outcome. That is the real pressure. And that becomes real. See, that's when the emotional weight shows up. That's when leadership stops sounding like a theory and starts becoming responsibility. And honestly, that experience changed me because I stopped wasting energy trying to make everybody understand what I carried in real time. As I stated before, I focused on consistency, preparation, communication, and execution because eventually results, outcomes reveal what pressure will expose us. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Some people will not fully understand your leadership until it forces them to stand where you stood. So stop chasing immediate validation. Keep building, keep leading, keep preparing, keep trusting yourself, keep showing up because pressure has a way of revealing how, or I should say, who can truly carry a responsibility when it matters most. Protect your confidence and lead anyway. Here's my thought. Before you judge the leader, first, carry the pressure they're carrying. Before you judge the book, please read it first. Because wisdom has a funny way of showing up the moment experience replaces opinion. I understand it, I lived it, and honestly, I am still living it. Build anyway. If you're new to the episode, I go by the name ED. For all you smart and intelligent folks out there, hey, that just simply means Ed. Until next time.